Welcome back to the channel. Before you toss that tiny copper penny aside or let it disappear into the bottom of a dusty drawer, you need to stop and take a deep breath because the 1962 1-cent USA coin sitting quietly in circulation has sparked some of the wildest treasure hunt stories in American coin history, with rumors, private collector whispers, and dramatic auction headlines fueling claims that under the right, extremely rare circumstances a single example could reach mind-blowing valuations talked about in the tens of millions, even as high as a jaw-dropping $75 million in speculative conversations. And while no verified public sale has ever confirmed such a staggering price tag, the power of possibility, rarity, mint state preservation, and error variations has turned this ordinary-looking Lincoln cent into the kind of coin that makes people rip open piggy banks, search through inherited jars, and scan pocket change with trembling fingers, because here is what most people don't realize. 1962 was a transitional era for U.S. coinage, struck in massive numbers at both Philadelphia and Denver, composed primarily of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, weighing 3.11 grams, bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and at first glance it feels common, ordinary, forgettable. Yet in the world of numismatics, condition is everything, and microscopic differences separate a 1-cent coin from a potential 5-figure, 6-figure, or in extreme theoretical hype scenarios, multi-million-dollar prize. Because collectors chase perfection, they chase blazing red luster untouched by oxidation, they chase sharp strike details in Lincoln's hair and beard, they chase clean fields free of scratches, and they chase rare minting errors that transform a coin from everyday currency into a historical anomaly. And the 1962 penny has been examined for double dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, die cracks, and other mechanical quirks that can multiply its value dramatically compared to face value. And when you combine an ultra-rare error with pristine uncirculated condition graded at the highest levels by professional services, the numbers can escalate rapidly in elite collector markets where competition drives emotion and emotion drives price. But here is the urgent truth you cannot ignore. Most 1962 pennies are still worth just 1 cent, and only the rarest high-grade or error examples command significant premiums, which means the difference between a coin worth nothing and a coin worth a small fortune could come down to tiny details invisible to the naked eye, making this a race against time because coins continue to circulate, continue to get scratched, cleaned improperly, or damaged, and every careless cleaning attempt with chemicals or abrasive cloth can instantly destroy collector value. So if you suspect you have a brilliant red, sharply struck 1962 cent, or one displaying unusual doubling in the lettering or date, the smartest move is to handle it by the edges only, avoid polishing it, and have it evaluated by a reputable grading service, because documented high-grade examples certified in top mint state conditions have sold for thousands of dollars, and while that is nowhere near 75 million, the mythology of extreme valuations often grows from the psychology of rarity combined with the explosive headlines generated by record-breaking coin sales and other series, fueling hope that lightning could strike again. And hope is powerful. It pushes people to search, to learn, to research mintages, to compare Philadelphia issues without mint marks to Denver issues marked with a small d beneath the date, to weigh coins precisely to confirm composition, and to inspect surfaces under magnification for signs of double die obverse characteristics, such as slight separation in the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust. And although 1962 is not widely known as a major double die year compared to some earlier iconic varieties, minor varieties, and condition rarities can still create meaningful premiums, especially when population reports show extremely low numbers surviving in top grades, and scarcity at the highest quality levels is what truly electrifies advanced collectors, because while millions were minted, only a tiny fraction remain in flawless red mint state decades later, and that scarcity curve intensifies every year as time claims more coins to wear, corrosion, and mishandling, which means if a superb gem example surfaces unexpectedly from an old bank roll or estate collection, it can ignite bidding wars, and bidding wars are where legends are born, and legends are where those astronomical speculative figures, like 75 million, get whispered in dramatic storytelling even if reality remains far more grounded. But do not let that discourage you, because even realistic four-figure or five-figure outcomes can be life-changing discoveries pulled from pocket change, and the excitement of the hunt costs almost nothing except attention and knowledge. And knowledge is your greatest weapon here, because understanding strike quality, luster, contact marks, and color designations such as brown, red-brown, or full red can drastically change valuation, with full red examples commanding the highest premiums due to preserved original mint brilliance. And storage conditions matter immensely, since copper reacts to air and humidity, so coins kept in dry, stable environments have a far greater chance of retaining that fiery glow collectors crave. And when you combine pristine color with razor-sharp strike and minimal blemishes, you create the kind of coin that climbs auction ladders steadily, and even if it never reaches the mythical 75 million headline, it can still represent a dramatic multiplication over face value. And that multiplication is what fuels viral stories, because the idea that a single penny could outperform stocks, real estate, or gold captures imagination instantly, and imagination spreads fast across social media, across coin forums, across YouTube channels, across late-night conversations where someone says check your change before you spend it. And that urgency is real, because once a rare coin leaves your hands unknowingly, it may never return, and countless valuable coins have been spent at gas stations, vending machines, and grocery stores by people unaware of what they had. So, the smartest collectors develop the habit of scanning dates carefully, separating older copper cents from modern zinc issues introduced later, and paying attention to mint marks and surface quality. And even though 1962 pennies are not rare by mintage standards, the condition rarity factor means top-tier survivors are far fewer than original production numbers suggest. And every year that passes narrows the population of untouched examples, intensifying competition among serious buyers. And competition is the heartbeat of high auction results, because when two determined collectors decide they must own the finest known specimen, price ceilings can shatter. And while history shows extraordinary coin sales reaching into the millions for certain ultra-rare pieces, those are typically unique or near-unique coins with documented historical significance. And that is why it is crucial to separate hype from verified auction records, yet at the same time remain open to the possibility that hidden treasures still exist in overlooked collections, because numismatic history repeatedly proves that remarkable discoveries emerge decades after minting, and estate finds have reshaped price guides before. So imagine the shock if a previously unknown, perfectly preserved 1962-era coin surfaced with characteristics never before cataloged, certified at the absolute pinnacle of grading scales, and introduced into a heated global auction environment. The buzz alone could send valuations soaring beyond conservative expectations. And while 75 million remains an extreme speculative headline rather than a documented fact, the psychology behind such claims reveals something deeper about human fascination with rarity, value, and the thrill of discovery. And that thrill is what turns an ordinary afternoon coin search into a treasure expedition, because you never truly know until you look closely. And looking closely costs nothing but attention. So before you dismiss that copper coin, dated 1962, consider the layers of potential hidden within it. Consider the decades it has survived. Consider the microscopic details that separate ordinary from extraordinary, and consider the regret you would feel if you later learned you once held a high-grade rarity and spent it for a single cent, because that regret would last far longer than the few seconds it takes to examine your change today. And this is your reminder that opportunity often hides in plain sight, disguised as something small and ordinary, waiting for someone curious enough to recognize it. So start checking jars, start checking drawers, start checking inherited collections. Handle coins carefully, never clean them. Seek professional evaluation for anything that appears unusually sharp or error marked. Educate yourself continuously about grading standards and verified sales data, and stay skeptical of exaggerated claims while remaining alert to genuine rarity. Because informed collectors win in the long run. And whether the 1962 1-cent USA coin in your possession turns out to be worth 1 cent or significantly more, the habit of paying attention could someday lead you to a discovery that truly changes your financial story. So do not ignore your pocket change. Do not underestimate small beginnings. And if you found this eye-opening, and you want more hidden coin secrets, rare date alerts, and urgent treasure warnings that could protect you from accidentally spending something valuable, make sure you like this and subscribe right now so you never miss the next potential fortune hiding in plain sight. Next, 1965 1-cent USA coin. What if I told you that a single 1965 1-cent USA coin hiding in an old jar, forgotten wallet, or dusty family collection has been surrounded by explosive claims and whispered collector legends suggesting it could be worth as much as $73 million under the most extraordinary and rare circumstances? Would you check your change more carefully tonight? Because the year 1965 was not just another ordinary chapter in American coinage, but a pivotal transitional moment when the United States Mint was battling a nationwide coin shortage, removing mint marks to discourage hoarding, and striking massive quantities of cents that on the surface appear completely common, yet beneath that ordinary copper appearance lies a world of conditioned rarities, experimental strikes, and error possibilities that fuel viral headlines and spark treasure hunting frenzies across the country. And while no publicly verified auction record confirms a 1965 penny selling for $73 million, the power of speculation combined with the reality that certain ultra-rare coins in American history have crossed multi-million-dollar thresholds creates the perfect storm of hope, hype, and urgency that makes people dig through every coin they own. Because here is what makes the 1965 cent so fascinating. It was produced during the first year after the U.S. Mint removed mint marks from circulating coins, meaning you will not find a D or S beneath the date even though coins were struck at multiple facilities. And this unusual policy change adds an extra layer of intrigue, since collectors cannot easily separate mint origins by a simple glance at the obverse. And that mystery has led to deeper research into die varieties, strike quality, and rare anomalies that may differentiate one coin from millions of others. And when you combine that with the fact that 1965 cents were still composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, weighing 3.11 grams before the later shift to copper-plated zinc in the 1980s, you have a coin that feels substantial, heavy, and historically connected to an era of economic tension, and economic tension often produces fascinating minting stories, because rapid production under pressure increases the likelihood of mechanical errors, doubled dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and other irregularities that transform everyday currency into collector gold. And in the numismatic world, rarity is not about how many were made but how many survive in extraordinary condition or with dramatic minting mistakes. And although billions of 1965 cents were struck, only a microscopic fraction remain in pristine, blazing red mint state grades at the very top of professional certification scales. And those population numbers shrink even further when you factor in coins that have never been cleaned, scratched, or mishandled. Because copper is highly reactive, and over decades it tones from bright red to red, brown to brown, meaning true full red examples preserved for more than half a century are far scarcer than original mintage totals suggest, and that scarcity at the highest grade levels is what drives elite auction battles. Because when two determined collectors compete for the finest known specimen, price ceilings can shatter under emotional pressure. And history has proven time and again that rare coins can achieve astonishing prices when uniqueness, condition, and demand collide. So while a $73 million valuation remains an extreme speculative figure rather than a documented fact, the psychology behind such headlines serves as a wake-up call that even the smallest coin deserves a second look, especially one from a year as historically significant as 1965. And here is where urgency becomes critical because most people treat pennies as disposable, tossing them into tip jars or letting them accumulate in cup holders, unaware that subtle details such as sharp strike definition in Lincoln's hair, crisp lettering in Liberty, and I in God We Trust, smooth unblemished fields, and original mint luster can mean the difference between 1 cent and thousands of dollars in collector markets. And if a rare double-die variety were to be discovered showing clear separation in date numerals or inscriptions, authenticated by a respected grading service, the premium could escalate dramatically beyond ordinary examples. And imagine if such a coin were not only a dramatic error, but preserved in flawless condition with vibrant red color designation, its desirability would multiply exponentially, because collectors chase perfection and anomalies simultaneously, and when perfection meets anomaly the result can ignite global attention. Yet most valuable coins are lost not because they never existed but because they were spent unknowingly or damaged by well-meaning owners who polished them to make them shiny, not realizing that cleaning destroys original surfaces and erases collector value instantly. So if you suspect you have an unusually sharp or unusual 1965 cent, the most important rule is never clean it, handle it only by the edges, store it in a dry protective holder, and seek professional evaluation, because authentication separates wishful thinking from legitimate discovery, and legitimate discovery is what turns rumor into record, and record into history. And although $73 million remains in the realm of viral exaggeration, even verified four-figure or five-figure results can transform a simple coin roll search into a thrilling financial surprise. And the reason these stories spread so rapidly is because they tap into a universal truth that life-changing opportunities often hide in plain sight, disguised as something small and overlooked. And coins are the ultimate example of that principle because they pass through millions of hands daily with almost no scrutiny. Yet occasionally one extraordinary piece survives decades untouched, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it, and recognition requires knowledge, which means learning about grading scales such as mint state 65, 66, 67 and beyond, understanding the difference between brown, red-brown, and full red copper designations, studying auction archives to separate hype from documented results, and paying attention to subtle variations in die alignment and strike pressure that may indicate something special. And in 1965 the absence of mint marks combined with high-speed production created a fascinating landscape for variety hunters, because without mint marks collectors must rely entirely on die diagnostics and microscopic examination to identify differences, making discovery more challenging yet more rewarding. And challenge is what fuels the passion of serious numismatists, because the harder a coin is to differentiate, the more thrilling it becomes to identify a standout specimen, and that thrill is amplified by the possibility, however remote, that one overlooked coin could command extraordinary value. And even if the $73 million claim remains hypothetical, the urgency to check remains very real, because once a rare coin leaves your possession unknowingly, it may circulate endlessly or disappear into melting or damage. And countless valuable coins have been lost this way throughout history. So the smartest approach is simple but powerful. Slow down and examine your change before spending it. Separate older copper cents from modern issues. Weigh suspicious pieces to confirm correct composition. Use magnification to inspect for doubling or unusual marks. And compare with verified reference images from trusted numismatic resources. And remember that condition is king, meaning a coin pulled straight from an old sealed roll stored in ideal condition stands a far greater chance of commanding premium prices than one rattling loose in a pocket for decades. And stories of rare coin discoveries and inherited collections continue to surface because families often stash away bank rolls without realizing their long-term potential. So imagine inheriting a small box of pennies only to discover among them a spectacularly preserved 1965 example that triggers a bidding war among advanced collectors. That is the kind of scenario that fuels multi-million-dollar dreams. And while responsible collectors always rely on verified auction data rather than viral claims, they also understand that new discoveries can reshape price guides overnight, because the market responds to rarity and demand dynamically, and demand for high-grade Lincoln cents remains strong due to the series' historical importance and widespread popularity. So even without reaching fantastical figures, top population coins continue to climb in value steadily, reinforcing the lesson that patience and preservation pay off. And preservation begins with awareness, which begins with this moment right now as you think about the coin sitting within reach, because the 1965 1-cent USA coin represents more than copper and design. It represents a snapshot of American economic history, a transitional minting policy experiment, and a potential gateway into the fascinating world of numismatics where knowledge can convert pocket change into prized collectibles. And whether or not any specimen ever truly approaches $73 million, the act of checking, learning, and preserving costs nothing but attention and discipline, and those qualities often lead to unexpected rewards. So before you dismiss another penny as worthless, remember how many people once dismissed rare coins that later shattered auction records. Remember how many fortunes have begun with curiosity, and remember that the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often microscopic. So tonight, take a closer look at your 1965 cents. Handle them carefully, protect them from damage, verify their authenticity through reputable grading services if something appears unusual. Stay informed through credible auction results rather than exaggerated rumors. And keep your eyes open because opportunities vanish quickly in the world of collectibles. And if this story has sparked even a hint of curiosity or urgency inside you, if it has made you glance toward your coin jar with new interest, then make sure you like this and subscribe so you never miss another potential treasure alert, because the next life-changing discovery could be sitting quietly in your pocket right now. And the deeper you dive into the story of the 1965 1-cent USA coin, the more you begin to realize that the true power behind the shocking $73 million headline is not just about a number, but about the explosive combination of rarity psychology, historical timing, and collector competition that can transform an overlooked copper cent into the center of national attention. Because 1965 marked the first year after the U.S. Mint eliminated mint marks in response to coin shortages, creating a unique 3-year window from 1965 to 1967, when identifying origin by a small letter beneath the date was impossible, and that single policy decision changed how collectors analyze cents from this era, forcing them to rely on microscopic die markers, strike characteristics, and surface diagnostics rather than simple mint identification. And that complexity alone increases the thrill of discovery, since a subtle variation unnoticed by the public could represent a previously underappreciated rarity. And in the numismatic world, new discoveries are still being made decades after coins enter circulation, which means the possibility, however slim, is never completely erased. And while billions of 1965 cents were struck, survival in pristine condition is a completely different story because copper is extremely vulnerable to fingerprints, moisture, air exposure, and mishandling. So a coin that somehow remains sealed in an original bank roll, untouched, blazing with full red luster and razor-sharp strike details more than half a century later, becomes exponentially rarer than its original mintage suggests. And rarity at the highest certified grades is where serious money flows, because registry collectors compete aggressively for top population examples, sometimes paying multiples above price guide value simply to secure the finest known specimen. And when two wealthy bidders clash over a single coin with virtually no equals, auction results can leap beyond rational expectations, which is how legends begin to form and why extreme figures like $73 million capture imaginations worldwide. Yet beyond the hype, there is a practical lesson that every coin enthusiast must understand. The market rewards verified scarcity, documented provenance, and elite condition, not rumors. So if a 1965 cent were ever to approach an astronomical valuation, it would likely need a perfect storm of factors, such as an extraordinary mint error never before recorded, authenticated by leading grading authorities, preserved in immaculate condition, and introduced at a time of intense collector demand, and that combination is rare beyond rare, but not theoretically impossible, because numismatic history has repeatedly demonstrated that previously unknown patterns, transitional errors, and experimental strikes occasionally surface decades later, reshaping what collectors thought they knew. And consider for a moment the possibility of a 1965 cent accidentally struck on an incorrect planchet, perhaps intended for a different denomination, or a dramatic double die with unmistakable separation visible even to the naked eye. And then imagine that coin surviving untouched in a safe deposit box for generations, only to reappear in a global auction spotlight where media coverage fuels bidding frenzy. The narrative alone could elevate it into the stratosphere of collectible fame, because collectors are not only buying metal, they are buying stories, history, and uniqueness is priceless when supply equals one. And although no confirmed sale has reached anything close to $73 million for a 1965 penny, the viral claim serves a powerful purpose by forcing people to slow down and examine their change instead of ignoring it. Because the vast majority of valuable coins throughout history were discovered accidentally by ordinary individuals who simply paid attention, and attention is the rarest skill in a world that moves too fast. So when you sort through a pile of 1965 cents, you are not just looking for shine, you are evaluating strike sharpness in Lincoln's jawline and hair strands, checking the clarity of the memorial columns on the reverse, inspecting for die cracks or unusual doubling in the lettering, and observing color quality ranging from deep brown to red brown to vibrant original red. And that last designation alone can multiply value significantly, because full red copper, after decades, is difficult to preserve, and population reports from grading services show dramatic drop-offs at the highest mint state levels, meaning only a fraction of surviving coins qualify as true gems, and those fractions drive premiums, and premiums drive headlines, and headlines drive urgency, because once the public becomes aware that even a common-day coin can hold hidden value in extraordinary condition, millions of people begin searching simultaneously, reducing the odds that rare pieces will remain undiscovered for long. And that is why acting sooner rather than later matters, because everyday coins are spent, scratched, cleaned, or lost, shrinking the pool of potential high-grade survivors, and shrinking supply increases intensity among collectors who demand the best. And beyond condition, there is also the fascinating possibility of proof issues from 1965, as the mint resumed proof coin production in that era. And while proof cents are distinct from business strikes, confusion between the two sometimes leads to overlooked treasures when original packaging is lost. So understanding mirror-like surfaces, sharp squared rims, and cameo contrast can help differentiate a proof from a circulation strike. And a misidentified proof or special strike discovered raw in circulation would certainly attract attention, and attention is currency in the auction world, because the more eyes focused on a coin, the greater the competitive energy, and competitive energy translates into escalating bids, and escalating bids are the engine behind record-breaking sales. So while $73 million remains a dramatic figure rather than a documented reality, the mechanics behind high-value coins are very real and rooted in scarcity, demand, condition, authentication, and storytelling. And you cannot control global demand, but you can control how carefully you examine and preserve what passes through your hands. And that is where opportunity lies, because most people still treat pennies as worthless, meaning valuable examples can slip by unnoticed, and the advantage always goes to the informed observer. So imagine the regret of spending a rare high-grade 1965 cent for face value only to later see headlines about a similar coin commanding an astonishing sum. That regret would linger far longer than the few seconds required to inspect your change today. So make it a habit to check dates. Examine surfaces under magnification. Avoid cleaning at all costs. Store potential finds and protective holders away from humidity, and consult reputable grading services for authentication if you believe you have something unusual, because professional certification transforms speculation into legitimacy, and legitimacy is what unlocks serious market value. And even if your 1965 penny never approaches mythical multi-million-dollar territory, the discipline of careful searching could eventually lead you to another coin that does, because the world of numismatics is vast and filled with surprises, and every major discovery in history began with someone who refused to overlook something small. So let the 1965 1-cent coin serve as your reminder that hidden value often disguises itself as ordinary change, that extraordinary outcomes begin with ordinary attention, and that urgency favors those who act rather than hesitate. So before another day passes and another handful of pennies disappears into circulation, take a closer look at what you already have. Educate yourself continuously. Verify before believing extreme claims, but never ignore the possibility that something remarkable could be sitting quietly within reach. And if this ongoing deep dive into the 1965 cent has sharpened your curiosity and intensified your determination to search smarter and faster, then like this and subscribe right now so you stay ahead of the next rare coin alert that could change everything.